Hello, and thanks for joining the Tahoe Regional Young Professionals, or TRIP, in our video candidate interview series. We'll be chatting with each of the South Lake Tahoe City Council candidates and sharing this video footage with you all in an effort to engage the community so you can make informed decisions at the upcoming November 4th election. We want to take a moment to let you, the viewers, know that TRIP is an independent organization, and although we do get involved with community issues, including local politics, every effort's made to deliver timely and unbiased information. I'm Jenna Palacio, and I'm here with candidate Bruce Grego. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a lot to discuss, so let's get started. So the Tahoe Regional Young Professionals represents a generation that want to make a future here in South Lake Tahoe. How do you plan to help constituents who are trying to follow their dreams, their careers, and raise a family here in the South Shore?
Well, first of all, you have to recognize what the city of South Lake Tahoe is capable in doing. You know, the city is involved in making sure we have law enforcement and some of the basic services, snow removal and the like. But the most important thing the city can do is to get out of the way, to let little businesses, other economic activity occur without overregulation, without too many fees, and those kind of issues. You know, there's things that we need to work on. You know, better broadband would help. If we had a better broadband system in this town, people could work from home, for example. And it would be nice to go up and down Highway 50 without losing your signal 3 times. And so those are the things that we can do. But we need to have flexible land use policies to allow development to occur, to allow people to do what they want to do in business. Because without those opportunities, no one can get established easily. If as a young professional, you're trying to get started, you don't want to be overwhelmed with regulation. I can remember when I first started as an attorney up here, I thought about buying a building and have my law office there, for example. But because I had to acquire commercial land coverage, for example, before I could even put the first nail in the ground, I would have to spend $50,000 in coverage. So those are the things that discourage establishment of businesses. Another thing that I think is very important for this upcoming council is to try to resist what I think is the corporate takeover of South Lake Tahoe. We have seen so many small businesses destroyed in the last 15 years. The Hole, where the Marriott sits, and all of a sudden the economic authority in those areas is one entity. It's much more difficult for people that are trying to establish their own businesses if the best locations are being absorbed by these large entities. And so,
I'm sorry, when you say large entities, what are you referring to?
Well, look at the Hole. The Whole was Owens Financial or one of its derivatives, okay? Before there was 29 little businesses on that site. Now there's going to be 1. That's what I'm saying.
One business at that location.
One legal entity running that entire site, okay? Same thing across the street with the Heavenly Valley, with Vail, with Marriott's. There's one large ownership of all that land. And everybody has to become renters instead of being sole proprietors with their own businesses. And see, for me, that's so important because while maybe planners don't like the condition of buildings or whether they look uniform or not, for me, it's beautiful because it shows social economic strength in our community and a strong middle class. And I think that's important to keep in our community.
I see. So so for helping specifically younger professionals and young families trying to get here, you think the key issue there is land use?
Well, there's other things too. You know, we have the 56-acre project. We need to continue pushing that. We need to create more recreational opportunities for children to give choices to people that come up here. We have an excellent high school facility now, and so that area has been well addressed, but providing recreational activities for the locals would be an important thing. When I was on the council, we built a park at the Y, for example, and it was well received. And those kind of things have to continue. But it's all land use, and that's the way I see it. It's land use, flexible land use, trying to establish facilities for the locals and things like that.
Very good. So, kind of keeping along this theme of voter engagement, as I'm sure you saw, South Lake Tahoe's voter record was at an all-time low in the last election. As a candidate, Bruce, how do you view voter apathy here in town, and why is this election really important for voters to participate in?
Okay. You know, one of the questions I have, and I don't have any hard statistics, but how artificial are our voter rolls? How many voters are no longer living in this community that are not deleted from the voter lists? So when we say a low voter turnout, we're basing it on the voter registration lists. And I say this to you because being involved in other campaigns, including my own, when we send out postcards, we get so much back as undelivered. And so you wonder how often, do they purge the lists so we have a true measurement of voter participation, okay? But with that said, this is an important election. There are, again, important land use issues coming up. Project 3, the whole, still remains to be completed, and there's going to be challenges for the council as to what's going to be allowed there, whether the permits are being followed, what compromises are going to be made. And we're going to have to be diligent to make sure that the public interest is represented, okay? Repeat your question.
So as a candidate, how do you view voter apathy here in our town, and why is this election important for viewers to participate in?
The other issue, of course, is the Loop Road. I've taken a position to be against the Loop Road. I don't think that rerouting traffic around the central core area of our business community will be helpful. Everywhere I've seen where highways and other roadways have been relocated, the businesses that are left die off. And I don't want to see that happen.
What's an example of these towns you've seen?
Well, look at the closest one is like Carson City when they built the new freeway, for example. That's a different kind of bypass, but it's still a bypass. And when I've attended some of the meetings on the Loop Road, individuals pointed to examples where businesses in that strip have seen a sharp decline in economic activity. A more extreme example is the new freeway. I think it's 580, whatever the number is, the new 395.
Oh, I-580 coming into Carson City.
Those little businesses that were in that valley are all gone. Maybe the chocolate factory is left, okay? But it makes common sense. Traffic is an important aspect for anyone that has a business. Traffic is very important, especially if it's a retail. And so if you reduce the traffic, you're going to reduce the number of buying opportunities for those businesses. In addition, as I said at the last forum, I oppose the use of eminent domain. I think that power has been abused by the city or misapplied by the city. We've damaged a lot of people through the threat of eminent domain. Again, go back to Project 3. While those properties were bought by the developer directly, there was the threat of eminent domain behind those purchases, that if you didn't sell to Randy Lane, the city would buy you. And in fact, some holdout businesses were bought through the city. Many of those businesses were never paid in full by the developer. And there's been even some lawsuits against the developer because of that. Lots of damage again as a result of eminent domain. I've never seen a good study as to how businesses that were removed, how they fared afterwards if they try to relocate. Did they survive, or what was the percentage that survived? And so I just felt so strongly in the last years that we have not applied this power fairly, that we should not use it again.
I see. And we'll definitely come back to the loop road here in our questions, but let's move on to another question here that we wanted to ask
Go
you.
ahead.
How can City Council address our town's underemployment? You and I both know that unemployment has been slowly rising, but in this town, how can we bring more career opportunities to local professionals? Or is it the assumption that to get ahead, you got to work 2 or more jobs?
Well, let me say this so you know. My parents moved to Lake Tahoe in 1967, and they bought a motel, and then they expanded on a motel in the State Line area. And so we were a small business, and we had to deal with economic issues. When I went to law school and graduated, I passed the bar in 1980, and I established my business here. And so I've had a lot of small business involvement and experience. I say again, to my earlier response, land use is the key. For example, there's like a 10-acre parcel near the airport controlled by the city. And there's no development, it just sits there. And it's not for airport use, it's just land. If we could develop attractive zoning options, maybe we could see some development there. And with development comes opportunities for people to move in our area. It's basically government getting out of the way. There's no subsidies or monies that can be used to encourage people to come up. It has to be in the area of zoning and flexible land use to encourage the use of these properties. I'm very hopeful right now. The city complains about needing more tax revenue. Yet in the 2005 period, we were doing well. The city was getting in a lot of revenue. During that time, that city council had the wisdom to establish a reserve that we still have today to protect us from downturns. I'm starting to see the same threads of recovery now that we had then. I mean, this summer alone, we've seen 3 old structures being torn down and rebuilt to something else. That's hopeful. I'm starting to see some new businesses come into town. Again, the city can set the foundation, but it's going to be up to the individual's own capabilities to establish themselves. We can only try and make it easy for them through flexible and reasonable land use policies. It all comes back to that.
Comes down to the land use.
It does.
Right. So moving on, at a recent forum that you participated in, a question was asked pertaining to engaging the Latino community in local policymaking. And this question and the forum as a whole later was publicly referred to as racist following the event. Do you think this forum being referred to as racist is an indicator of racial tensions in our town, or possibly a disconnect from South Lake Tahoe's ethnic diversity?
I don't think, first of all, the comment about race was not on this question. It was on something else. One question was posed about, because we're having a different mixture of tourists coming to Tahoe, whether we should do something different to accommodate them. And I said, was this a race question? And the question was asked again. And I responded by saying, let the economy adjust itself. If we're having a particular ethnic group come to Tahoe, then we should start seeing restaurants and other accommodations from the private sector to accommodate that. But I don't think government should do anything in that area, okay? The question about the Latino community. It takes time to assimilate. I think that any particular group that wants to participate should, when they're ready. The only thing government can do is make sure there's an even, fair playing field. Anybody can run for office. Anybody can run for office. And I said, in my own personal circumstance, my father came to this country by jumping a merchant ship and come to the United States illegally in the late 40s. And then he got his citizenship. I'm first generation American, okay? If I could do it, other people can do it. I've never felt that race was an issue in our community. And I think that anyone that runs is going to win or lose on the merits, not on their race.
Understood. Great. So moving on, let's come back to our conversation about the Loop Road.
Yes, please.
So if the Highway 50 revitalization plan or Loop Road is approved to move forward, how would you work with other council members to implement it and address some of the concerns about the displaced residents in that area?
Your question is somewhat leading.
How so?
You assume, you adopt what the Nevada-based chamber has been expounding. Revitalization? I don't think it is.
Well, that's what the project is called, Bruce.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Or Loop Road, if the Loop Road is approved.
But it is not revitalization. It is not revitalization. If we reroute the traffic around the core businesses in State Line, we will lose patrons. We will see a decline in business income. I've seen nothing that would dissuade me from that conclusion. Okay.
The economic impact study, for example.
And who drafted it?
I believe the Tahoe Transportation District did.
Well, I think in part, and with others that support the project, okay? I don't agree. I simply don't agree. It will not be established if I get elected. You know, when I was in the council before, I have found that discussing issues and bringing issues up and not letting issues go away too easily, sometimes you develop allies. Sometimes you develop understandings with other council members and you persuade them to support your position as opposed to what they were supporting, okay? But the loop road that they're talking about is not a revitalization. But let's go into your specific question.
I was referring more to what the project is being called by the developers.
And yeah, I understand that. I'm not, you're just a messenger. I understand.
We've developed these questions on
Okay.
behalf of our members, and we just want to make sure we're giving them your stance on the issue and how you would work with your fellow council members if it was implemented. How would you go about, if the project was approved, how would you go about implementing it and working with your fellow council members to address some of the concerns that are brought up, you know, about, for example, displaced residents, and where I believe
Okay.
all three projects are look at rerouting behind the casino core.
Yes.
So that would displace quite a few people, quite a few families. So how would you address that?
Assuming I want to go there, and I don't, clearly we would have to establish middle and low income facilities built before any destruction of existing facilities occurred. I would be quite insistent upon that. But we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. Look, how long have you been in Lake Tahoe?
Gosh, 8, 9 years?
Right.
Long enough to go through the Angora fire and the hole and all
I've been
that.
here since 1967. I went to high school up here. I graduated from South Tahoe High. Again, the eminent domain issue. Remember one thing. You need 4 council members to approve eminent domain, not 3. I've taken a position, a strong position against the use of eminent domain. If just one other council member agrees, there's no loop road, because we will not buy out those properties. The list location is severe. You ever heard of the yellow crest?
No.
It's a flower, a plant,
Oh.
that's protected in the basin. It's on our shores, and if you try to build something over it, the TRPA stops you, okay? And why? You can't transplant that plant. If you move it to another location, it dies. We go and we tear apart all those facilities for families. It's going to be hard to restore that. The city has never, in my mind, ever studied the impact of prior condemnation actions. Again, I've been here since '67, and in the last 15 years, we've seen a lot of businesses and to some extent homes being torn down for other projects. No one's ever followed up as to how those people have come out. A few, maybe 1, 2, 3 businesses from the last buyouts have survived. Others then reestablished themselves. Across the street from Bank of America, we just tore down another commercial building. Okay, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I forgot the professional name.
The Altamira building?
Yes, Altamira building. There was a person that was there, Tom Deputy, who sold glasses. And he was there for many years. And you bought glasses from him, and if your glasses broke, you go there, he'd fix them with no charge. He was president of the Lions. You know who the Lions are?
The Lions Club?
Yes. Do you know what they do?
Civic involvement?
No. They work to buy and acquire glasses for people that can't afford to have them. Well, he's been displaced. Where he's been for 30 years, he's gone now, and he's going to go to Carson City and work with his son, okay? We've lost that person in our community. We've lost the services he provided. He's at an age to try to start again in a new location is too overwhelming. But he probably would have been there for another 10 years. We've lost that person. And we've lost the guidance he provided for the Lions group up here, because he was the president for a long time. That's the kind of dislocation that you cannot compensate with government money when you dislocate people. Now the Loop Road is going to dislocate all kinds of little businesses and a bunch of people that live in this town. Will they stay or will they leave? Will they find it so difficult to reestablish themselves that it'll be overwhelming? And they'll go. And so, earlier on you were talking about the young professionals and where can they go and what can we do? You establish yourself, your generation establishes yourself, and all of a sudden the little business that you have here, that you've worked hard and everybody knows where you are, all of a sudden you have to leave. And they say, oh, well, you'll be compensated fairly. False. It's a lie. I'm a practicing lawyer for 34 years. I do civil law. I've litigated condemnation cases. I know how the government deals with people. They hire sharp law firms from the Bay Area, and they beat us down in every dollar they can to minimize the impact on the public treasury, and you're left with a compromise. You're not made whole. You're dislocated. And that's what the Loop Road will do for us.
Isn't that compromise part of our job as a community aren't we a network of compromises?
You come in our community, not you specifically, but you're talking about the young professionals as a generic group. It is hard to stop a business, to stop and start it again. It's like the yellow crest. Transplantation is really difficult, and the survival rate is low. So you work all your life to establish your family here, to have a business that is reasonably prosperous, but not necessarily highly profitable. And then all of a sudden someone moves you out of the way because they want to do something for somebody else. And I oppose that. And that's why I oppose the loop road, and that's why I oppose the use of eminent domain, and that's why I'll work hard, whether I'm in office or out of office, to stop that loop road.
Let's touch base on another redevelopment topic that's going to be coming up before the City Council in the very near future. What would your decision-making process be? What would your decision-making process be like for the redevelopment of the South Lake Tahoe Airport?
First of all, I'm not tied to any special interest group. I'm a sole practitioner as a lawyer. As a lawyer, I listen to the merits of a case and then render a decision. Do you know, in the 90s, as a volunteer, I was small claims court judge up here, and you listen to controversies and everything else. Being on the city council is very similar to that. So the first thing I would do is listen and see what's viable, see what is reasonable that the city can accomplish, and take an input. That's the first step. So what would be my mindset is to listen and to read the staff reports and to go outside the staff reports and try to get other information and to gather as much as I can before I render a decision. That's my mind process.
Right. Yeah, that's lots of different topics that are going to be coming up on the table here, leading up to the next 4 years that the City Council candidates will serve. Another question for you, and really as we wrap this up, you know, we'd like to address, you know, when you close your eyes and envision South Lake Tahoe in 5 years from now, yes, what do you see?
There's two ways to answer that question: what I hope I could see and what I might see, what I may see.
Well, let's do both.
You know, I'm hoping to see greater economic prosperity. We're going through a transition these last 10 years or so. We've lived through the Great Recession. Are we running out of time?
No, please carry on.
Okay. We've gone through some hard times with the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
The casinos that used to be the main industry up here for many years have lost their vision because of competition, because of other things. And so there seems to be a consensus in our community to establish more recreational opportunities, whether it's, you know, having the ferry established in our community to go to the North Shore, to expand on the 56-acre project to get some more of those things done. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hoping to see is a greater establishment of recreational activities, more completion of bike lanes, bike paths, other outdoor activities, and hopefully the marketplace will respond and we'll get more people that will come to Tahoe for that reason than gaming. I also have to say that I hope in 5 years that we'll see more flexibility in land use. And let me say this so you know, it's not that we want to see more development just for development's sake, but what we want to see is greater flexibility in trying to renew our community and try not to create unnecessary roadblocks. I'm hoping to see that if I was on the council, less fees being charged, revisit our taxation structure, because all those things discourage. You know, I was one of the leaders in the Measure P movement, which was the paid parking issue. I opposed paid parking. I was one of the signatories on the ballot measure that supported Measure P, which was passed by 2/3 of our community. We want to get away from that kind of taxation that discourages people to come to Tahoe. Because if we can encourage people to come to Tahoe, more visitors, then we're going to create more opportunities for young professionals and for people that are already here in business. You know, I don't rent rooms. I'm a lawyer. I don't do anything directly with tourists. What I do is I deal with business people and residents alike with legal problems, but they can't fund their legal needs if they don't prosper. So we're all tied together. And obviously tourism is still going to be the major industry for Lake Tahoe. And we need to continue to promote that.
Excellent. Great. Well,
is that endorsement?
Is that endorsement?
No, okay.
But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this interview up.
Please.
But you can keep in touch with TRIP on Facebook and certainly with TahoeTrip.org. Thanks again for watching. And remember, your vote matters. So register. Get your friends and family to register. Encourage everybody to show up and let your voices be heard this November 4th.
Ditto.